Hello, and welcome to episode 9 of the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast. This is for the week of March 28th, and today is April the 1st. This episode is going to be in multiple parts because I've been recording them throughout the week. On Monday, I watched the Tina Tamborg Cromford Report and recorded very soon after that to get my thoughts and everything out of there down quickly. Wednesday, I recorded the Wednesday numbers with a new graphic to hopefully make the new numbers a little bit more transparent. Then today, I'm going to do the wrap-up and everything like that, where I'm also going to discuss a topic that came up during both days that will be having an impact here in the future on our market. We're not sure what the impact is going to be, but I think it's inevitable something is going to come out of this. So stick around, and thank you very much for watching. This was recorded Monday the 29th. I just got done listening to Tina Tamborg from the Cromford Report, give her weekly numbers. It's hosted by Security Title. And I'm going to read my notes off to you and make a couple comments. The Cromford Report number market index is 505 this week. That's down from a high of 512 a couple weeks ago. That's still high. 100 is considered average. A perfectly balanced market of 100 houses with 100 buyers looking for 100 houses. Demand is still up at 111.8 or figure 112, and supply is still drastically down at 22.1. So a good mental image to use is that you have 112 buyers chasing 22 houses, and they're all in line on opening day. So that's what we're starting to see here is a starting is lowering demand, because at 111 used to be 115. New loans are starting to get open up. There's not as many applications for new loans. It's starting to slow up a little bit there, and that's all because of our interest rates. Our interest rates are at 3.17 average from Fannie Mae. So the days of the 2%, 2 and change loans are pretty much done with, unless you're using points to buy them down. So as the interest rates go up, buyers start qualifying for less houses. Buyers start being able to qualify for less of a loan. So that's when you start seeing demand drop on that. Supply is so there's your lowering demand. This is not a big impact as of yet, but it is that little indicator that we start looking at, because the correction becomes a lagging indicator as the demand goes down. All right, supply will come up because there's just not as many people taking them off the market if houses are going onto the market at a normal rate. So supply is currently flat. I'll run the numbers again on Wednesday, and you'll see that later on in this episode. And what's going on with where we hit below 4,000, we bounced up for 2 weeks above 4,000, and now we're below again as of last week. What's this week going to be? I can't wait. We got 2 more days. It's like 2 days before Christmas for me. All right. We're still looking at 6 days supply on the market, or 6 days on the market for houses that are for sale. So a house goes on the market, it's going to be under contract on average within the first week. I saw somewhere a chart that was showing that we are actually at half a month's inventory. All right. So no properties on the market come back in. The demand out there will suck every house for sale out of the market. We will have nothing to sell with 2 weeks if nobody was putting properties in. And we do have people putting properties in. So the supply is staying flat. This is what she said. She's talking about her numbers that she ran today on Monday. And I will tell you what my numbers run on Wednesday. She runs her report the day she does her report live on the Zoom call. I do mine consistently on Wednesday. I like to think I'm a little bit more accurate, and that's the only time I'll ever say anything of that I could be more accurate about Tina, is because I'm the original Tina fanboy over here. All right. Other things looking at is 49% of our houses under contract went under contract above asking price, and the average amount between the 300 and 350,000 single-family residents, the average amount was $11,000 over asking. So that was up a little bit from 10 a couple weeks ago. So people are starting to get savvier. They're starting to come up with ways to get a little bit, ask a little bit more. Hopefully the appraisal will save you. So cost to build is increasing. It's up $24,000 year over year just because of the lumber alone. And I had an interesting conversation with an electrician this week who mentioned through one of his friends, and this is like Bob told John, John told Sally, that kind of stuff. But he's got a friend who's working for one of the construction companies, one of the new home builders. And he was told that they have 400 houses out there framed out, and they can't start to do the wiring. They've done all the wiring through there except for one major part, and that's the breaker box. And that's because there are no breaker boxes out there. That's a vital part of the house. You don't have electricity in a house unless you have a breaker box. And the companies that make the breaker boxes went down over COVID, and they're backlogged. So that's a little hiccup, that's keeping houses from getting completed. This is a supply that we need to meet our current demand. Remember, we still have less houses. We only have 22 houses on the market where we should have 100. All right, builders are doing their best, but if they can't get breaker boxes, we're going to have a bad day. So I did manage to steal a chart during this presentation. I screenshot it, and I'm going to show it to you right now. This is a chart that I stole from today's presentation that Tina gave. And she's been answering the same question I've been answering. It's like, why do we have a housing shortage right here? And she keeps flashing this up, so I was finally able to get a screenshot of it. And what you're seeing on this chart right here, if you can follow my mouse, is you can see that way back here in 2001, okay, your red line is your housing growth. That's housing units, apartments, trailers, single-family residences, condos, whatever it is. We were actually building more property than we had population was growing. Right. And we were building 3.2 annual growth a year, 3.2, 3.1, 3.5, right? You see this, and this is a sign of showing, hey, we got sort of a glut in housing. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that there is housing just going unlived in. Like we've talked about before, household creation, people moving out on their own. All right, that doesn't increase population when the kids leave the house or the divorce happens and people go out there and get 2 houses. All right, but we had over, between 3.2 and 2.8. That's only a 0.8 or 0.4% difference there. There's a 0.6 difference, and so it was pretty legit that we're tracking along. And then the crash happens, all right, and you see both population and housing both start to drop down right around 2006, 2007. All right, people were still coming into the valley. Notice that both of these things are still both in the positives. All right, people aren't coming into the valley as much because the economy is not doing well. Arizona wasn't doing that well. All right, but you're starting to see the housing growth slow down, and then the crash really happens, and you see right here at about 2009. All right, they cross over. All right, so population bounces around for 3 years there, 1.2, 1.2, 1.2. All right, and then it starts picking up a bit. All right, now this chart only ends at 2019. They haven't finished out getting the 2020 numbers in, but you can see once that crosses over, housing starts. Housing units being built goes all the way down to 0.04. Right, that is less than 1 house for every 100 houses out there. And then it slowly starts to creep back up, and you can look at the gapage between the gap on the left from the crossover point, all right, and the gap on the right. That is showing you that there are less houses out there, all right, built for the amount of people that we have on here. This is a major issue that we have here in Arizona, is that people keep moving into Arizona. All right, we're not building the houses faster. We were up until 2009, and then we stopped, and we've never caught back up. Right? We're not even at the same build rates that we were before back in 2001, all right, or right there at the peak at 2006. Right? We have not hit those original numbers. We have not been building housing units as a percentage of the total housings out there since this chart got started. So wrap it all up. The word Tina is using, the word that I'm using is we're not accelerating as fast as we used to. So foot's off the gas, maybe not down to the floor anymore, but it is starting to come off. Demand is starting to lighten up. If we get this breaker box scenario ever straightened out, if the builders can get their pipeline issues straightened out, more houses coming on. Like the chart said, we obviously need more houses. We have a deficit right there. And is for those people who are asking, Ray, just good time to buy, good time to sell. One of the things that Tina always mentions is that from a buyer's market, you never want to buy into a buyer's market. And the reason why you don't want to buy into a buyer's market is because you lose all of the appreciation you will gain from day one when you start buying. As you go into a buyer's market, you're buying then. It's easier to get under contract. You got more choices and whatnot. You get to be picky in a buyer's market. You get to be silly with asking for seller concessions and this and that and the other thing. But your appreciation was not going to grow as fast as when it's in a seller's market. And I really don't think we're going to be in a buyer's market anytime soon. I did get a lot of conversation. Tina talked a lot about forbearance, and then immediately afterwards, we're talking the COVID forbearance. She talked about it, and then I just had two back-to-back, one conversation and one quick video from two different lenders, and they're starting to freak out about the forbearance glide. Tina's position is that we are down to 257 million houses nationwide, currently in some sort of forbearance. That's down from a high, it was like 4 or 5, all right? So we're about 50% down. And other ones that got resolved, 50% of them got resolved to the good, meaning they refied out, they just made the payment. They just opened up their checkbook and wrote the check for everything, you know, all the mortgage payments that they hadn't been making. And only 14% of those that are currently out of forbearance went out of the forbearance with a bad plan or no plan at all. They were short sales, deeds in lieu, cash for keys. Deeds in lieu and cash for keys are pretty much the same thing. Regardless, they got out of the property. So are these properties going to suddenly wind up down on the auction block? Are they just going to start glutting into our market, taking care of that supply demand that we're dealing with, and flooding the market and going into a buyer's market, and maybe possibly home prices going down? The two lenders, all right, the one that I just watched on the video and then the one that I just talked to, they're concerned because the numbers right now of houses that are bad, in a bad way of being forbearance, and these are houses that they're not being paid off, they're not being short sold, they're not coming up with a new mortgage and maybe just doing, refinancing into a new product or not doing anything like that. They're concerned about the high percentage numbers that are getting resolved that way. The wild card in the deck is, what is the Biden administration going to do, and what is the government going to do when it comes to making all of this right? If you have a person out there who was in forbearance because they lost their job and it's been 9 months and they still haven't gotten their job back, and the forbearance go away and the bank comes knocking on the door going, okay, now you got to start paying us or get out. Is the Biden administration, is Congress going to allow the banks to start foreclosing on these properties? And if the banks start foreclosing on these properties, what happens to those people in there? All right, do they take the hit? Do they take the foreclosure on the credit? Are they gone? Or are we going to have some sort of weird bailout scheme like we did back in 2008, 2010, back in that kind of craziness? We don't know yet. Hopefully, if we do have that kind of bailout, we have a more consumer-focused bailout program and not a bank-focused program. I'm really getting into an editorial over here, but the government made really, really sure and worked really, really hard to make sure that the banks that were too big to fail did not fail. They could have, in my personal opinion, could have done it in a way to make it a lot easier for people to... All right, let's just put it like this. You have a loan. It's $150,000 on your loan. Your house is now worth $100,000. You lost your job. You got a new job, right? But you can't make a $150,000 payment. What they allowed you to do then, all right, is empty out your bank account, empty out your retirement account, all right? Go into the kids' college fund, rip all that out, okay? Take all the money you possibly have, pay off the bank as much as you can, And then once you have been bled dry, then possibly the bank will come in and help you get out of your house, like do a short sale. All right, so you just killed the piggy bank. All right, smashed it, given them every penny, gone through your seat cushions, and now the bank comes in there and says, okay, let's short sell your house. You owe 150, it's worth 125. You sell the house for 125. The bank agrees to take your 125. All right, you're out the door. All right, you're in a van down by the river. Bank is supposedly out $25,000, but they're not really, because what they get to do is they get to go to the federal government and get that $25,000 made whole, all right, through the bank protection program that they were doing. Does it not seem easier if the federal government had just allowed the homeowner to refinance the property at the 125 at that interest rate, lower their monthly payments to something they could make, and then take that balance remaining, take the amount over, have the federal government write escrow a check to make the bank whole at the end, and that goes onto your loan as something called a silent, or your house as something called a silent second. It just sits there, right? And it's not due until you sell your house. And if you'd stayed in your house for another 5, 10, 15 years after we recovered, right, and at the time you get to the point where you sell your house, okay, you pay off the existing loan of whatever the balance of the 125 was, and you pay off the federal government the $50,000. Everybody's happy with that scenario. Right? Did they do that? Nope. They went their own way. Why did they go that way? That way because Ray's not a congressman, and I'm not a lobbyist, and I don't have John McCain on speed dial. Of course, nobody does now. He's dead. Or whoever else back there was, running Congress at the time. This is me really seriously considering just hitting stop on this entire video and just saying, okay, we're not continuing on with this. And then I'll edit this entire rant out. And that's what we're pretty much going to do. No, I watched that and I decided, no, I stand by everything I said. They could have come up with a lot more consumer-focused fix to that system instead of doing it the way they did. So, next up, Wednesday numbers and what we got going on. I'm going to record this on a different day, so I'll have a new shirt. Watch for the shirt change. And now for the daily numbers. This is March 31st. I created this new chart to help graphically show people where the numbers are and where they go. Everything over here on the green is either coming soon or active. These are properties that are currently being listed for sale. The red lines, when they go over into the red areas, these are houses that are under contract and so are not very available to you. However, we have UCB up here where they are looking for backups, and we have contracts with buyer contingency. That's the one down here at the bottom, and everything goes into pending. And I put the arrows in here just to clarify how properties move around in the churn. Property can go UCB off of active, it can go pending off of UCB, it can go back from UCB over to active, but eventually they all wind up over here in the closed column. I've added a new number that I'm going to start tracking here. It's called the coming soon number. MLS made a change here a couple months ago that allows agents to put a property on that's not actively being listed as in you can't come and go inside and look at it, but they are putting it out there to generate buzz. So with the coming soon, we can start seeing where properties are going to go. Now, I have put the arrow here saying that coming soon all goes into active, but in reality, if you look at it, sometimes you'll see a coming soon go off the market, just cancel a listing temporarily off market. Sometimes you'll see them go straight into pending. Sometimes I just won a day, went all the way to closed all in the same day. So it was coming soon, got opened up for a minute to active. Next minute, it went to pending. 1 minute after that, went to close. So track the coming soon numbers. Keep an eye on them. Just realize that not all of them are going to wind up in the active column. And we'll see how things go out from there. So starting with the first ones, we have 1,006 properties looking at coming soon. Of that, we have 3,983. That's a little bit up from last week, which was 3,938, and shows we might have actually hit a floor down on there. We are bouncing around up a little bit. I would like to see those numbers start going up even higher. UCB's properties under contract, but they're looking for backups. New ones were 1,291, and over here we have the contracts with the buyer's contingency that they have to sell their own property. There were 74 of those. Those tend to average out at around 80. All right, and our paintings were at 1981, which is 64 less than last week. And we had a total closings over here of 2,332, which is up 107, which we anticipate them closings going up at the end of the month, just because everybody always tries to close at the end of the month. I'm going to start updating this chart even more, where I'm going to start showing you the weekly change underneath it. And one of these days, if I can figure out how to do it, I'd love to have this automated out of the spreadsheet so I don't have to hand type all the numbers in. And now for the farm report. Lean hogs closed today at 105.3 with a volume of 14,739. It opened at 105.5, hitting a high of 105.75, and the low today was 103.875. So as you can tell, the theme of today is called forbearance. And what is a forbearance issue, and how is it going to impact us all? When the universe starts saying the same word over and over to you in the course of the same week, it's time for you to start paying attention to it. There's right after I got done listening and recording on Monday, I started doing a little bit more looking around for this, and there's a lot of information out there on the internet, and some of it's really contradictory, some of it's a little bizarre, some of it is a big glorified advertising campaign for you to buy their book or their product, and they'll throw out articles on whatever the topic of interest is, and you need to spend your time going through it and figuring out, okay, this is a good source, this is a bad source, this is a good source for numbers, but don't listen to their opinion, much like this podcast. So the one of the sites that I came across is called wolfstreet.com. Wolf like the animal, street.com. And very contrarian guy, very whole world's going to come apart, buy your gold and ammunition now. But he does show the numbers, the raw data. So I like places that do that because I can read past the editorial and get into what the actual numbers is. And he was talking about the amount of FHA loans that are currently delinquent in the system today. This has been a reoccurring theme about these delinquent but not yet getting foreclosed on properties. And there was a huge chart on there, and there was originally, these are the top 10 local areas that are more in danger on this. Good news, Phoenix isn't on the top 10. Phoenix is actually pretty well down the chart, and I wish I had the number for you, but it's like scroll count. Okay, screw it. Alt F, type in Phoenix. All right, there we are. But the numbers that this chart was showing is that our FHA loans that are currently delinquent, meaning they've missed a payment by at least 30 days, is 19,302. So there are 19,302 FHA insured loans out there that the homeowners have currently are behind. All right, that comes to about 15% of the total. And of those, the seriously delinquent, and this means that over 90 days, is 10%. And that 15% and 10% is of all the FHA loans out there. So the number you really want to track on that is that there's 19,302 FHA loans that are behind on payments. All right. Now, it also had this number on here saying that the FHA share by count is 15.6. So I'm assuming that means that 15.6% of all loans out there in this area, the Phoenix metro area, is an FHA loan. I'd love to find some numbers on that, figure out exactly what the split is, but that's so 15% of 15% is really not that much, but it's the 19,302 properties that are currently behind, which could become an issue. When the forbearance is lifted, and remember, it's not HUD that's doing the forbearance. It's not the Justice Department. This was the Center for Disease Control. The CDC decided to mandate something in an industry that they're not impacted, that they should have no impact. And we just all rolled right along with it. If anybody knows something else on that besides what I just stated, I'd love to know about it, because I'd really like to know exactly what the mechanism was where they decided to do these forbearances on the loans. I think a lot of it was just social pressure. No bank out there, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Bob's Saving and Loans, wants to be seen as the guys who started, foreclosing on people who lost their job because of COVID. And if everybody's taking that route, then you just go along with the work. So 19,000 houses, that's a potential issue if we were not in today's market. Because remember what we were just talking about over there with Tina, that we are at 22% of as many listings as we should be. Right? We're about 4,000 listings. Right? That's 22% of what we should be. So you can extrapolate out, and I wish I had a calculator right there, what our normal amount of listings should be at that point. If you drop 19,000 houses on the market tomorrow, they all got foreclosed on and they showed up tomorrow, that would seriously impact our market. All right. But, and this is the big but, we're still looking at 112 buyers where we should have 100. And we're looking at 22 houses where we should have 100. And I'm not quite sure if that 19,000 houses suddenly hit the market wouldn't be gone in about 3 or 4 months. That's a real serious potential there. Those 19,000 houses added the 4,000 that we currently have would put us at about 23,000, and that's pretty much where we should have been through this point. Like I said, I really should sit down and find my freaking calculator and do your homework, kids, before you turn on the camera. It makes everything look so much better. All right, so let's see, 50,000. This is one of those things where because I didn't pay attention to math class, I'd have to completely re-engineer the equation to figure out how that works. So we're just going to skip that. But yeah, off the top of my head, I think those 19,000, would definitely right-size us, and at that point, we definitely would be in a buyer's market. But I don't think it's that huge a chunk. Now, that being said, that's just the FHA loans. There's also Fannie Mae loans out there. There's Freddie Mac loans out there. There's conventional loans out there. There's VA loans out there. So there's probably more than just 19,000 houses currently in forbearance here in Phoenix. The thing you got to remember is the FHA loan is the, parsing my words very carefully here, loan or a VA loan. Actually, we've seen before, a lot of people don't get the VA loan because they don't realize they earned the VA loan. But you qualify for an FHA loan when you can't qualify for a conventional. Most of the time, it's because you didn't have the down payment. All right. Conventional loans are happening right now with 3% or 5% down. All right. FHA loan is 3.5% down, and a lot of times you can get buyer's assistance on that through some of the programs out there. So, but because of the qualification, because you don't have the cash in hand to close, because you don't have the credit score that a conventional lender wants to loan you money at, people who tend to go to FHA are just not as well qualified. And unfortunately, and as a matter of reality, when the economy takes a downturn, those are the people who get hurt the most and first. Because the person who cannot qualify, cannot save up 20% to purchase a house, who does not have the assets for 20% down on a house, can come up with a 3.5, or they can get sellers, or they can get a first-time homebuyers program. They tend to be least likely to be able to weather the storm of, hey, I just lost my job for 3 months. I don't have 6 months worth of income saved up, like Dave Ramsey has been telling us since he, crawled out from underneath a rock or wherever he came from 20 years ago. And so they turn into the canary in the coal mine. It's the FHA buyers who get hurt first. So we got 19,000. Not all of them will get foreclosed on. Some of them will be able to right side. Some of them will place their houses on the market and sell and get out. You'll see those in the active listings. Some of those people are going to get foreclosed on. So of those 19,000, there's a really good chance we're going to see the bulk of them, all right, hit the market. But I used the term through the whole thing, the big block of 19,000 hitting the market on exactly the same day. But in reality, that's not how it's going to work, because the foreclosure process here in Arizona is quicker than other states, but it's still pretty slow. You have, and I've been racking my brain all this week trying to remember back 10 years to what that count is, but I want to say it's a 90-day process from the first time you get the notice that the bank is foreclosing onto you to the day your house goes to auction. In that 90-day period, a lot of these people will be able to right side. Some of them will do those things, will cash for keys. Some of them will renegotiate and refinance out with the bank. So they're not all coming on the market, but they're also not all coming on the market exactly the same time. So if they broke that out over 6 months, or let's make the math easier for Ray, if they broke the thing out in the next 4 months and did 5,000 a month and put that on the market, we have the buyers for that, right? What that means is your houses are suddenly not going to be appreciating as fast as they have been. You're not going to see the multiple offer situations. You're going to see a little bit more reasonableness when it comes to, you're not writing an offer for 10,000 over waiving the appraisal and waiving the inspection, and that would almost be a return to normal at that point. You'd almost start calling that a normal market. Now, at the end of the day, 19,000 households, where are those people going to go? They're going to need to rent, or they're going to need to move in with family members, or they're going to have to start cohabitating with other people who are in the same boat. So that's, regardless of how you split this is going to be a big hit if this comes out the way it comes out. That being said, I mentioned earlier when I started getting into my little rant over there that it all depends on how they decide they want to fix this. All right, and that is huge. All right, this is one of those things where I would tell you to write your congressman, but I don't know what to tell you to write them, except start paying attention to this. Right? This needs to be addressed now, and not in June, where they've successfully kicked the can down the road to June. And when we come up on June and they kick that can down to September, this is going to keep getting worse and worse until they fix it. So this is one of those Band-Aid off quick kind of things. They need to come up with a clear cut, this is how we want the banks to address this situation. Are we going to see that happen? I seriously doubt it. But I'm 50 years old, and I'm getting a little bitter and jaded when it comes to the federal government doing the right thing. My dad's probably so proud to hear me say that. So, well, that's wrapping up this this week's episode and whatnot. I hope I gave you something to think about. Definitely have something I'm going to think about. Maybe I can come up with some more clarifying stuff for next week. If you have any questions, complaints, concerns, especially if you have any insight into this whole forbearance thing that's coming down the pike that I'm not aware of, please leave them in the comments below, and I'd really like to start getting into a conversation on this, because this is going to be a thing, right? You guys have a great day.